Before starting this video, I do want to give a shout out to my patrons that support the channel. And if you'd like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you if you want to look at the Patreon link down below. So with that out of the way, let's get into this week's video. What's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG. Glad to have you here. We have a really great version of Polukranos Reborn right here for 3 green mana. It is a 4/5 and has reach. To be quite honest, the front side is not really anything fancy, but the back side, holy crap, this is absolutely amazing. We have Polukranos Engine of Ruin. Polukranos forgot his homework one day and he decided, hey Wormcoil Engine, can I copy your homework really quick? Yeah, sure buddy, just make sure it doesn't look too obvious. But I do like what they're doing with different Phyrexian creatures, essentially like with Blightsteel Colossus and Wormcoil Engine. They're trying to make them into different legendary creatures like this and also Atali. I do like what they're doing here. So what does Polukranos Engine of Ruin do? He does have reach and lifelink, and whenever Polukranos or another non-token Hydra you control dies, create a 3/3 green and white Phyrexian Hydra creature token with reach and another one with lifelink. So of course you saw the thumbnail and you expected Hydra Tribal. This is definitely absolutely Hydra Tribal if I've ever seen one before. So let's talk about some cards we want to put in this deck. So we got a mix of token generation and also 1/1 counter themes in here, so we want to utilize that to the best of our abilities. So for token generation, we do have Parallel Lives, Mondrak Glory Dominus, and Anointed Procession. These are just going to be absolute all-stars in any token producing deck right here, so these are no-brainers in here, especially when a lot of Hydra creatures are dying. We're just going to be making more and more Hydras off of our commander, but if we want to have more 1/1 counters on our creatures as well, we do have Hardened Scales, Branching Evolution, and Unbound Flourishing. But if we do want the best of both worlds, we do have Primal Vigor and Doubling Season. These are absolutely crazy. I know they're a little expensive. Of course you could proxy them. I mean, there's no other reason not to, especially if they're probably going to be reprinted soon. So since we do have a lot of tokens entering the battlefield, we must have Cathar's Crusade in here, no doubt about that. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. With all this doubling of tokens and everything, and with our commander and Hydras dying, we're going to be producing so much tokens on the battlefield. This is absolutely a must include. Let's also talk about some utility cards that are great in any kind of Selesnya deck. I like these mainly because you want to make sure you get your Hydras out fast and big too. So for example, I did think of Mirari's Wake, essentially doubling the amount of land you could tap so that you can make huge Hydras, and on top of that, it's a great anthem for your Hydras as well. We do want our non-token Hydras dying, so we do have Greater Good. This is just great in here because when we sacrifice a creature, we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, then discard 3 cards. Because we do have a lot of huge Hydras, we're going to draw so much cards off of this, and on top of that, we'll get some extra tokens with our commander as well. This is just an absolute win. Speaking of which, when a lot of Hydras are entering the battlefield, we might as well throw in Aura Shards right here. For 3 mana, we have whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. This is just absolutely insane, especially in a token deck. You're definitely going to clear the board of all artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. I also did add a little bit of a sub-theme in here. I did add a little bit of Phyrexian support because we are making Phyrexian Hydras, so might as well. So we do have the Praetor Vorinclex in here. Getting lands off of his ETB is incredible, but his backside is absolutely backbreaking for your opponents. The backside has just great utility overall for our creatures. We definitely want to include it. Also on top of that, we do have Vorinclex Monstrous Raider in here because we might as well have him in here because it almost acts as a doubling season for our 1/1 counters. I also brought in the new Elesh Norn to the party as well because it just has great abilities. We definitely want to make sure we have this one in here. With our first ability, we could use a lot of different fight spells so that we can make sure our opponents are drained of life or they have to pay the tax for that. And her Saga side is absolutely backbreaking for our opponents as well, making more tokens, giving our creatures double strike and +1/+1 until end of turn, and essentially a one-sided Wrath is absolutely perfect for our deck. And if some of our Hydras die because of that effect, that's okay. We'll just make more because of Polukranos. It's that simple. It's so great. It's so good in here. We might as well add the original Elesh Norn in this list as well because other creatures you control get +2/+2 and creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. That's simple. We're going wide. We're going to have a huge army so we can swing in with this Elvish Norn as well. Absolutely fantastic in here. So let's move away from Phyrexia. Let's talk about some Hydra support. So we want to focus mainly on our Hydras because that is the core of the deck. That's what we really want to focus on because we have a lot of 1/1 counter synergies. The Ozolith is absolutely perfect in here, essentially storing our 1/1 counters so that we can put it on another creature we control. Because of a lot of our Hydras are dying, we could put those counters that were on those Hydras onto the Ozolith and then redistribute them on another Hydra. Absolutely great in here. Also, I did think of Runadai, Behemoth Collar. This just works great with 1/1 counter synergies in general, but especially for our Hydras right here. It's a mana dork on top of that, and also creatures you control with 3 or more 1/1 counters on them have haste on top of that. And if our Hydra spells are mana value 5 or greater, that creature will enter the battlefield with X additional 1/1 counters on it, where X is -4. So definitely a great value engine in here for sure, but we also want a great mana dork in here as well, like Nexos right here from the Warhammer series. So of course this is perfect in here. A lot of our Hydras do have that X mana cost in there, so this is going to be great. Essentially giving our basic lands, adding 2 colorless mana instead is absolutely incredible. So now let's move on to the main event, and that's Hydras. We do have a lot of great Hydras in the Magic the Gathering history. So first up for Hydras, we do have Gargos, Vicious Watcher. For 6 mana, we do have a legendary creature Hydra. Vigilance and Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less, and whenever a creature you control becomes target of a spell, Gargos fights another target creature you don't control. So of course this card definitely deters your opponents from having spot removal, because then your Gargos will definitely chomp on some of their other creatures they don't want to get rid of. Another Hydra up we do have is Colonian Hydra. For 5 mana we do have a trample, and when it enters the battlefield it'll have 4 1/1 counters on it as well. When it does attack, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. All your Hydras. Absolutely incredible. This is absolutely insane based off of an attack trigger for all our Hydras. However, if your opponents love to play spells, we do have Mana Gorger Hydra. For 3 mana, we do have a Trample Hydra right here. Whenever a player casts a spell, put a 1/1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. I think there was one time in a game where I was playing Xenagos God of Revels, and one time this had 26 counters on Mana Gorger Hydra, and I didn't have really any proliferate or doubling things for counters. It was just straight up people were casting spells, and it became a 26/26 out of nowhere. So this could definitely inflict some serious damage, especially when we have a lot of doubling the counters. Also, another Hydra I did want to include was Rampant Rejuvenator. For 4 mana, we do have a Hydra that enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it. And when it does die, we can search for lands based off of its power onto the battlefield as well. So say for example, this was a 10/10 because we put 10 counters on it. So that means when it dies, we can search up for 10 basic lands and put it onto the battlefield. And the best part is all the lands enter the battlefield untapped. Definitely a great card in this list, but there's a funny combo you could do with Polukranos, because there's a lot of different ways you could get Hydras on the battlefield, because with the X ability you could actually make Hydras enter the battlefield with 0 counters on them so they die right away, so that you can make 2 3/3s. So if you do want to combo out that way, instead of making 1 Hydra you'll make 2 Hydras. How fitting, especially for Hydras specifically. But definitely a funny way to get more Hydras on the battlefield with Polukranos' ability right there. However, I want to thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on this very new version of Polukranos. When I really think about it, Theros got it really dirty having 2 creatures completed with Polukranos and also Heliod. Makes me wonder what's going to happen to them in the future because of all this shenanigans with Phyrexia. However, the big thing about this card is you definitely don't want to build around the front side. I mean, what's really nice about the front side is you could actually get him out on turn 2 and possibly flip him in earlier, but you really want to focus on that backside right there. Having a Wormcoil Engine effect for all Hydras is absolutely insane. It's a really busted ability in my opinion, especially when you combine token synergies and on top of that with 1/1 counter synergies on there. However, let me know down below, what do you think of this new version of Polukranos? Which one is your favorite out of all of them? Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and with that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.